What this guest told me, who was autistic and Asperger's, and he's a millionaire now. I asked him what time. I said, you've gone through all that, and the marriage didn't work, and he had a very good relationship with the dog. That's another story for some other time. I said, of all the things, what do you think? What advice would you give to your viewers? He was on television, and he said structure. And I said, tell me more about it. He said, we have to have a structure. We do very well when we know exactly what the structure is. So that right from the beginning, the people who are helping these children, parents, professionals, and their special classes, I really salute these people. They're very patient. I see the results in the office, 20-minute visit, 30-minute visit, maybe every 3 months or 2 months. But I am so optimistic about what can be done. But it cannot be done with drugs, and it cannot. Anybody who wants to have a talk psychotherapy with an autistic child, I think I should not say anything more about that child, because I cannot think of anything kind to say about that person. So let's not say
Well, they could blame their own mother's womb. 212-209-2950 is the number to call. Dr. Ellie, in this extended edition of the program Science, Health, and Healing, which is normally heard at 1 o'clock every Saturday, is discussing today issues of mood and mentation, thinking, memory loss. We are offering you today Dr. Ali's Memory Loss and Alzheimer's DVD for $75. Dr. Ali's ADHD DVD, and he's been discussing this for pretty much the last hour. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Syndrome, or so-called diseases on the spectrum. That is autism, Asperger's, and so forth, usually found in young people, whereas the Alzheimer's comes in later life. We're also offering Dr. Ali's Oxygen DVD for $75. So each of those DVDs is $75. All three yours for $150, so that you will understand the whole spectrum of memory and memory loss. Not that using the word spectrum differently here, but as it occurs in different stages of life. Life at its inception and life in its closing years. 212-209-2950 is the number to call, and we urge you to call that number, not only because you will learn so much about Alzheimer's disease and attention deficit hyperactivity syndrome that is different, and a whole new window opens on those diseases or deficiencies, that you will be surprised. You will have a new kind of approach to looking at your relatives, looking at your friends, looking at your friends' relatives who are suffering from these debilitating, frightening syndromes. 212-209-2950, because Dr. Ellie will always, in all of his DVDs, return to his own integrative approach. The bowel, the liver, the oxygen model of how to survive this life with health and pleasure and self-support, where you can look in the mirror and know that you are your own doctor. Look into your own eyes and say what's wrong with you, and look into your own eyes and say, ooh, boy, I better go into the refrigerator and get out Dr. Ali's breakfast, or eat my toast with butter, or have whole milk yogurt. The hundreds of little pearls of wisdom that Dr. Ali has to offer in every single one of these DVDs. But if you have more than one of them, if you get, for example, the $150 pack, you'll be able to piece together, to sew together an understanding of really how the body is constructed, and how one organ affects the other organ, and what you eat and what you drink and what you think, and how you approach life can affect all of these organs. Breathe, breathe, breathe. 212-209-2950, or give to number 2, WBAI.org. Also, for those of you who are health practitioners or want to be health practitioners, or know someone who wants to be a health practitioner, what an investment the $1,100 Dr. Ali's 30-volume special book and DVD pack is for that person. 212-209-2950, $1,100. Dr. Ali will call you after this program once we get your number, once you make that call, once you call the call center or approach this on your computer, he will call you. He will set you up with someone in his office to select 30 titles of either books, DVDs, any combination you want. Your interest, your hopefully the person you've gotten this encyclopedia of medicine for, help you to select 30 titles from over 200. So make that call now. Help WBAI survive. Help yourself survive. Help your family survive in good health. This is called Science, Health, and Healing. And you can do it scientifically, too.
Wisdom without words. I had in my office a woman in her late 70s or 80s, and her husband used to be my patient too. He passed on. So she said, oh, I'm doing much better. She used to have some problem with the stomach. She said, oh, I'm fine, I'm so much better. So when something like this happens, and I know someone for a long time, so I said, this is the best time for me to, whatever. Because I don't have any problem. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to do any tests. She's already told me she's fantastic. I looked at the notes. She had the problems of GERD and some bowel problems, and they are taken care of. So she's here. She was waiting for half an hour. So I said, listen, let's call it Sally. That's not her real name. So I said, Sally, how would it work if you spent an afternoon with 4 African grandmothers in East Africa who lived there 150,000 years ago? So she looked at me. I said, yes, that's my question. If you had to live an afternoon, spend an afternoon in the company of 4 grandmothers who lived in Rift Valley, East Africa, 150,000 years ago, how might that afternoon go? After she recovered herself and she said, you know what? I think it would be nice. And I said, well, for this thought experiment, you're crossing the time and you're going way back into the past time. So for this, we are going to say there's going to be no physical harm to you from cats and snakes or whatever. She said, okay. And I said, so how would you communicate with them? She said, well, you know, I can't speak their language, and obviously they don't know my language. And I said, they will all, you know, you have white hair at this time. And you're wearing a very nice dress, and they may not be like that. She says, oh, if they're grandmothers, we'll get along fine. So I said, okay, we'll get along fine. In what way? She just said, we just have some fun. And I said, and thirsty. She said, I know they don't have refrigerator, and I don't think they have any big food or popcorn for me. So I said, but you're hungry. She said, well, you know, the gestures that told them with my hand and mouth gestures, they probably might have some seeds or nuts or some, you know, leaves they would offer me, and they probably show me how they eat. And I said, so here's the question for you. In terms of basic human decency, basic compassion, basic acceptance of, you know, our peers and other peers, do you think that they would not have known what you know? And I said, before you answer the question, the idea of grandmother is that they were mothers once, and so they conceived, they carried a baby, they delivered the baby, they nursed the baby, they nurtured the baby, they protected the baby, and when the baby was going on to be a teenager, they tried to make sense of that baby, of their elements, people, animal, plants, clouds, rain, leaves, the roots. So she smiled and she said, yes, okay, I know what you're saying. And I said, so at the human level, raw humanism, walking human, crying human, laughing human, eating human, starving human, do you think they would not have known or experienced anything that you know and you have experienced all these years in America? She looked at me and said, you know, you're right. I think everything that I know about being a human, they would have known. I said, okay, let's go to the next question. Ethics is the study of consequences of one's actions.
Ethics, yeah.
Ethics. Ethics, is a study of consequences of one's actions on others, as well as the consequences of one's inaction on others when action is necessary. She looked at me. I said, you agree with that definition? She said, yes. I said, do you think that in the field of ethics, there was something that they would not have known that you know here in America? She looked at me, she smiled, and she said, you're right. I said, okay, the next question. Do you think there would have been times of famine and peace and hunger and hate in the lives of those poor grandmothers that they came up to the end of their line, so to speak, in terms of remedies that they could do for their children, grandchildren? And they would have looked up to the Spirit for some higher healer, some higher intelligence, some higher support structure. She said, yes. And I said, so, okay, so now tell me,